in my opinion, we are still in CRM in many cases very external focused. What I mean is we consider deposit from the player as the finish line. Campaigns are built around it, bonuses are there to push it, and the success is also measured by it. So if you get the player to deposit, you're happy, you had a wonderful campaign, great conversion rates, but that doesn't mean that you ran a good campaign.
Welcome to another edition of Connected, and today, once again, we're talking about one of my favorite topics, which is marketing, and underneath marketing, CRM, player retention, acquisition, conversion, all the parts of the player life cycle, as supported by Kyborg, an agency that specializes in supporting companies in PR and CRM strategy, marketing strategy, and all aspects of player life cycle management. Brigitta Szenczy, how are you? Thank you for joining me.
Hey, Ashley. Thank you for having me. All good. How are you?
Good. Nice to see you. Now, we share a few clients with Pragmatic Solutions. You work with a few of our customers, and I know that you've done some good work with them in advising on CRM and their strategies around marketing generally, or player lifecycle management, I think more broadly. Tell us a bit about yourself. Tell us about Kyborg, the agency that you started, and what it is that's your core value proposition. What do you guys bring to the table?
We started Kyborg after working together already with my business partner, Christoph. We had mutual clients, actually, even when we started Kyborg. So it started to just make sense to bring this together under one umbrella. And our very first official client was actually a migration from one tool to another. They are a white label casino, and they had their services managed by the platform operator. And they wanted to wander away from the flock, let's say, and try to do something different. So we helped them with the migration, and then it just started to be a business, really. Even before that, when we realized that this is a business opportunity, we can have a different view on most of the things people do in CRM. And this just escalated, really.
So where do you get involved? What parts of the customer life cycle do you focus on? And what's your relationship with the operator? Do you work with their in-house teams, or do you work primarily with companies that outsource that function entirely to you? How does that work?
It's both cases. So sometimes we have two types of clients, mainly the ones we built from scratch and the ones already operating, and we need to take over something. And of course there is crisis, but the first two are the main. And we can build their whole CRM, and not even just CRM, but the engagement, gamification, loyalty system. Or we can take over whatever they already have set up. We work either instead of their internal team, even if they don't have any, or with their internal team. We start with a diagnosis, really. We check what are the weak points, what are the fallout points, and we start fixing those specific weak points. We work in phases, so we have the structure how we work. It's always starting with identifying the problems, set the priorities straight, create strategy, and then execute a strategy. So we go through the whole thing together. The clients get a dedicated pod, so it's more experts, with everyone focusing on their strengths, where I'm, for example, more focused on strategy, someone is checking compliance, and someone is doing the detailed setup in the chosen tool.
I'm interested in that first step where you talk about identifying the problems that they're having. Do you find that the operators you speak with have a clear understanding of where their CRM problems are? Let's call them opportunities, maybe. Or are they often surprised by what insights you can bring to the table?
It's a mix of both. Sometimes they are aware that they are lacking something. They are just not able to identify what exactly that is. And in most cases, it's really just the actual lack of CRM.
You mean altogether?
Altogether.
So full blank slate.
Yeah.
So customers are being acquired, but they're missing the opportunity to build value with them by establishing a data-led relationship with the customer to build that engagement?
Yes. So even there are cases where we talk about two different things when we talk about CRM. We are talking about behavioral-based real-time actions, and they are talking about campaign calendars.
Mm. So in order to get the insights necessary to be able to build these sort of campaigns with that level of personalization, you must rely on considerable data access. And I suppose these days that's real-time data. So you have certain expectations of platform. I guess I'm speaking from the domain I am very close to here at Pragmatic Solutions as a PAM provider. But whether you're working with our clients on our technology or other platforms, what is the basic tooling that you need to be able to provide value to an operator and be able to work with them on CRM?
So if we are staying with Pragmatic Solutions, it's easy to do it right because we have access to real-time data, and that's the foundation. The other thing we expect from the platform is the freedom of choice when it's coming to choose your tool. These are, I would say, the most important things the platform should provide for a CRM team to execute valuable campaigns.
Okay, because that's interesting segue, because you mentioned tooling, and again, at Pragmatic Solutions as one example, we have integrations with many CRM providers, vendors, Optimove, Fast Track, Extreme Push, and others. Do you have a preference towards one set of tooling, or is that often secondary to strategy leads first, tooling comes second? Tell me what your view on that.
So my view on this is you should have a preference on tooling, but that should be strictly based on business needs, compliance needs, and other operational value needs. So just asking your CRM team what their tool preference is, I don't think that's the good approach. So in my opinion, from the business point of view, the chosen tool matters, but the operational CRM team point of view, the tool shouldn't matter that much, because exactly how you said, it's strategy first. So when you try to decide what tool you would like to use, it's of course the first thing is the integration depth. So if the tool is integrated in your current platform, real-time data is provided from that tool, it works well with your platform, and there are of course compliance needs. So it's secure, is it compliant, your players are protected. And the last thing I would say is there any specific business needs that the tool needs to fulfill? There are strict markets where you only need one specific feature where you cannot do anything else, and you can have the best tool in the world if that specific feature is missing.
Okay, so thinking about that for a second, you talk about the strategy being the leading proposition or the leading consideration before tooling. I'm taking for granted for a second that all operators have the same objectives or have the same goals or are measuring for the same KPIs in order of priority. But last time we spoke, you kind of opened my eyes a bit that not every operator has the same goals or is in the same phase of maturity as an operator, that they should have the same objectives. Maybe as a business, one operator that's relatively new is in the position of building up a database of customers. Another customer who has a mature customer base may be partially focused on acquisition, but heavily focused on activation and retention. So how do you define what the goals should be, and is there need to be buy-in across product teams inside the operator as well to support everything that you're trying to do from a CRM perspective across the business? And yeah, let's talk about that for a second. Goals and maybe pitfalls. Is there also a risk of having the wrong goal in mind and driving the wrong KPI which is a vanity KPI, let's say. I think I've heard that before, where vanity numbers are pursued at the expense of the business profitability. So talk to me about how you get involved in helping operators navigate that challenge.
Yeah. So the first thing you do is you set what they are trying to achieve. So it's often asked that, what do you do? Yeah. So it's not, we need CRM. We need to ask, what business problems are we trying to solve, and build the KPIs around that. So setting the goals, you need to be able to identify where your players are driving revenue organically. So if you have a strong acquisition, if you have great first deposit rates, but your players are not staying for the second deposit, then this is what you need to this is what we need to discuss. How do we fix that? So it's not, I can't really say that we have one structure for everyone. This is what we do. We do a rather deep but quick analysis on what are your business weak points are, and we set KPIs to that, we set goals to that. One thing I notice a lot is that operators are looking at CRM as a messaging tool rather than something that can drive their business. So you can send a lot of communication, SMS, push, whatever, but if the campaign is not moving your retention, your revenue, your active users, you're not actually doing CRM, you're just communicating, you're just really loud with your players. CRM needs to be built around something you want to achieve. So this is the first thing we do. We ask the operator, okay, so what are your weak points? If you don't know, let us check it. We go through it and we set the strategies and we execute them. And common pitfalls we meet is we are trying to set goals when CRM is already live. So if you just finish your lifecycle setup and now you're checking, okay, is it moving my revenue? Is it getting more conversion? This is not the good way to start. So you need to identify your problems for when your organic traffic stopping, and then build the campaigns to fix that, not the other way around. Another common pitfall is using one KPI around all different markets and brands. Different markets behave completely differently, and different brands attract different players, even on the same market. So one casino can have strong organic, behavior-based players, and another needs to rely on strong bonus offering. The one cannot be compared with the other. There are market differences, there are brand differences.
And both can be an effective strategy given the other dynamics of those campaigns are correctly configured?
Yes, if your players are already interacting with your casino and you start doing very aggressive messaging, it will become annoying to them. And on the other hand, when you're operating on a market where being loud is considered normal, then being quiet completely puts you out of the competition. So you need to be aware of those things, on what market you're operating, what are the cultural normalities of that market, what are the preferences in communication, what is the maturity level of communication sources, if the normal is still email, or we can move to, for example, Telegram. So there are many differences we check when we start working with someone.
And what about beyond a CRM tool itself? What do you look for in terms of internal support inside the operator, the team that you engage with to help manage and deploy campaigns? Or what other recommendations do you have for operators beyond CRM technology to help with player engagement? Is there any other gamification tooling that you recommend, or communications tooling?
One thing, and I like to highlight this, and I know it's not a popular topic, but we meet many times that operators expect CRM to fix other kind of problems what they experience with what they are dealing with. For example, UX UI problems or any technical issues. So if you have a problem on your site and you're trying to fix that, because obviously if you have a technical problem, you will see a drop in player numbers in revenue driven, because players don't have a smooth process they like to go through. So if that's the case, increasing the messaging can just increase the frustration. It won't drive the players back who were leaving because of some other reason. And that's something we heavily rely on internal teams. We report back and we ask them to look and dig deeper what also can cause these issues rather than CRM itself.
Right. So if you have a fall off point in a conversion funnel that is very negative to the efficiency of a campaign, more campaign is just going to put more people through that journey, but statistically the percentage success rate isn't going to change. So you may be able to amplify the underlying activity, but you're not doing so any more efficiently before you fix the journey. So I guess there's a product alignment and operational alignment in the business to be aligned, for lack of a better word, with the CRM strategy. Okay, so you also mentioned something about personalization versus generic, always good strategies, and that there's a time when generic campaigns are good and there's a time when personalization is most effective. How do you tell the difference, and how do you know when to use what approach?
Okay, let's start with the generic offer. When we do generic, when there is nothing, we start with generic. It can be faster, and in many cases it can be more effective, like an onboarding or second deposit. The first few experiences of the player are pretty much similar. You don't need to do personalization from day one. You also cannot. So when you need the generic strategies is when the player is coming to you and you want to learn about them. Also, it has time limitations. So a well-timed generic offer can beat a complex setup which is executed late. So you need to be smart with your time. If you're waiting 2 weeks
That's a really good point.
to set up your personalization, you're already losing players, even if the case is that you don't even need personalization yet. And when I'm saying generic, I don't mean irrelevant. I just mean broadly resonant for every player. So you don't need to always say, hey, Ashley, we know that you prefer blackjack at Tuesday, 8:17 p.m. It can become important at one point.
Calling all blackjack players may be good enough.
Yeah. So your offer needs to be contextually appropriate. So I'm not saying that personalization is useless. At some point, it becomes very important, but it only works if it changes player decisions. So if you're only putting there the first name and the favorite game, that's, in my opinion, just cosmetic. That's not personalization.
You make an interesting point, though, about, on time or a timely activation of a campaign may be more valuable to a business than coming up with the most complex segmentation and sharpened spear-pointed campaign with heavy personalization. If that's going to take you months to put together, the absence of any CRM activity may be much worse for your business than doing nothing. Sorry.
Yeah, you need to get to the maturity level where you. Sorry.
No, I think what I'm trying to say, Brigitta, is you make a good point about a generic campaign that you can deploy quickly is going to start driving results immediately. And then you can take as a secondary step further refinement and personalization and more specific segmentation to improve the results. But delaying getting started may be a bigger costly mistake than the inefficiencies of something generic or perceived inefficiencies of something generic. Okay. What are your key focal points when planning? Because you say you set out to improve a business for an operator. So what are your key focal points? And maybe let's try to challenge you here and say, what are your top three focal points if you're entering a new business and you're going to look for improvements to that business in a relatively narrow time span? What are the three focal points for you?
The first thing we check is retention rates. So this is where we start with, and of course conversion rates. And after the basics are fixed, I like to start focusing on how CRM can support your VIPs. And sorry if I'm running ahead of myself, but we need to focus on the fall points where you're losing strategic revenue. So there is mass churn and there is VIP churn, and there are many things we check when we start working with any casino. Most of the times they already come with a plan, to be honest, that we want to improve this and that. But there are many things which I think where I think that CRM is focused on the wrong things, and we try to help open their eyes and look a little bit beyond. And for that, I have a few examples. In my opinion, we are still in CRM, in many cases, very external focused. What I mean is we consider deposit from the player as the finish line. Campaigns are built around it. Bonuses are there to push it. And the success is also measured by it. So if you get the player to deposit, you're happy, you had a wonderful campaign, great conversion rates. But that doesn't mean that you ran a good campaign. So if the player deposits and after that they have, I'm not saying a bad experience, but could have better experience, then you're missing the whole point of the engagement, because the players decide if they want to return after the money is already in your account. They made a deposit, they started to play, and you need to also focus on that experience. And many operators we work with, I experienced that the player deposited, we are letting their hand go. Enjoy.
It's interesting too what you say, that you're not you seem to be focusing on more making sure that the value is captured and that players are engaged in having a good positive experience with the operator. Before, you're talking about, your answer wasn't about maximizing acquisition or putting more players through. You went first to making sure that you get the right conversion rates, get the right activation and deposit conversion rates, and are retaining the right value customers. And if you start there, then you can amplify, because you don't have a hole in the bucket losing all the value out the bottom with a strong acquisition campaign and no retention. So I think that's actually a pretty interesting insight. I'm going to shift gears for a second, because one thing that is on a lot of people's minds these days is how they can implement AI into their business and get value from it. We're doing that across Pragmatic Solutions as an example, and it touches our business in terms of value add in many different ways. You're in a very competitive space in advising on CRM and marketing more broadly. And operators have to be also wondering, is this something I'm going to improve by bringing in human advisors? Or is this an aspect of my business that I'm going to improve through some new AI tool that I can connect to my database, and it's going to run those campaigns automatically for me? And where do you sit in that? Do you see uh, a threat from what operators are seeking to do with AI, limiting the scope of the involvement you can have with operators, or is AI only going to be an add-on tool for, not only going to be, I don't think anybody wants to say only going to be in terms of AI. I think the horizon's quite broad, but maybe let's talk about how do you work alongside AI in a business, or is there a border between the input that you can provide an operator versus what they're going to get from AI inside of the CRM aspects of their business?
Funny enough, we even have a client where they already have an integrated AI automation tool for CRM when they hired us. We don't really see AI as an enemy. I still like to think about it as an ally. There are many things AI can do better at this point, but I've never met a case where it was plug and play, so where you didn't need at least one expert, or actually more, to give it a start. AI can do many things better than humans already. Pattern changes detection, time scaling, channel scaling, the things that humans would do way slower, checking thousands and thousands of data. But AI, I don't think it can long-term protect your brand, where humans can. And I think that's a very important point. And also it's learning from whatever data you have. So if you're in a situation where your data is maybe a little bit delayed, confusing, not very strict and straight, AI is going to create a chaos for you. You need a human to check on it. On the other hand, where I love to use AI is where it does faster, cleaner, and better. Checking changes in player behavior. That's something, of course, human can do, but very slowly and very badly, and takes forever. Analytics, and also the most important point regarding AI is removing human bias. And what I mean by that is you have a CRM manager. They spent a month to build a structured campaign, and it's not working. You can see on the first week that it's not working, something is wrong with it. First of all, AI can find what is the problem with it, and also it doesn't have emotional bias towards that campaign. So obviously a human who spent a lot of time creating and putting it together doesn't really want to deactivate it, and AI will tell you right away that please stop, that's not doing any good. So this is something we definitely use AI on a daily basis. But at this point, I haven't experienced AI replacing us.
I think that's the case with so many experiences with AI implementation into business these days. Is it's helping people do more and draw conclusions or insights more quickly, and accelerate production, whether that's content or code or creative. But the strategy is driven by the expertise, and I think you bring that point across very clearly. One thing I wanted to kind of close on, which is really important, you've mentioned a few times here, and it is a key part of our industry, is the value of VIP players, and particularly the balance these days between managing relationships with VIP players and the value that they can bring in operation, while also doing so consistent with regulation and compliance obligations that the operators have, and providing good player protection. A key part of that, I suppose, is the CRM-based relationship with those customers. So let's talk about how you view the VIP segment within the operator's business, and how you come up with a communication strategy to maximize the value of that customer relationship.
Yes. So there is this 20/80 reality, which is very true. I check operators data. Sometimes it's even more extreme, that your 10% of player driving your 90% of your revenue. And if you have a segment like this, you can't call them as one segment like whales in your system. You need to identify them somehow, but then when you're designing the strategy for them, this is the point where it needs to be very personalized. Even more, it needs to be dedicated strategy for each one of them, dedicated strategy, dedicated communication channels, whatever they prefer. Because they are not self-sustaining. VIPs are actually even more experienced, and they know their options, they know their value, and they expect to feel that value. So if you're sending the same offer like one step below or even two steps below that player, you're sending a message that you don't really know them and you don't really value them as a VIP. And CRM's role in that is, even if you have a really great VIP management team and you're communicating with your top VIPs directly, even with AI or as a human, CRM can be an early warning system. You can identify the warning points if you're looking for them the correct way. And when I say looking for them the correct way is 3 heavy losing sessions after one another. Missing behavior where previously was behavior. Slower responses. Shorter sessions. So these are VIP warning signs, not drop in deposits. Because when you notice the drop in deposits, the player is already gone. And VIP churn it's not a statistical like mass churn. It's personal. You lose a serious amount of revenue. So CRM can support a VIP team or even work as a VIP team if you're setting up the correct personalization. So when I say personalization, you need to check the risk, how much you're willing to risk for that player, the timing, the channel preference, their favorites, the amount of the incentive, and the urgency, how quick they like to react and how long they like to take after you message them.
Once again, Brigitta, that was a really interesting way of looking at it, because you're saying, the answer I was expecting was about the communication strategy, which you did touch on to VIPs, but I think it was really insightful to say, analyzing the effectiveness of your VIP CRM strategy is going to be the first marker you have of the sentiment of your VIP customer base. It might be the first indicator of a potential churn risk with them, the closer you are to it. So the more you're measuring and tracking the responses that you're getting, not just for tuning the campaign to be more effective, but asking the question of what's the reason they're not responding? Maybe they're already playing somewhere else. Yeah. Brigitta, we're going to be out of time for today, but really insightful. So once again, the company is Kyborg. Where can people find you if they want to learn more and talk to you about how you could support operators' businesses in reevaluating their CRM strategy and amplifying the results that they're getting? How do they get in touch with you?
They can definitely reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. The website is kyborg.ai, and also reach out to us on conferences. We are happy to help anyone.
Okay, and as always, we're going to put the links below the video, so wherever you're watching or listening to this, check in the comments below and you'll see how to get a hold of Brigitta, Christoph, or the team at Kyborg and learn more about what they can do to potentially help your business grow through managing better customer relationships through effective CRM campaigns. Brigitta, thank you for joining us on Connected. It was a real pleasure seeing you again.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ashley.
Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.